ghostly ocean giant. The SS Waratah was meant to be the pride of the Union Castle Line, a magnificent passenger steamer that was part luxury cruise liner, part cargo ship, designed to conquer the booming trade routes of the early 20th century. Launched in 1908, she was hailed as a floating palace. With her towering decks, gleaming white hull, and accommodations fit for the wealthy elite, the Waratah was seen as the future of ocean travel between Europe, Africa, and Australia. Yet beneath her polished grandeur lurked whispers of imbalance and instability. Sailors muttered that she leaned strangely in heavy seas, that her weight was uneven, that she didn't ride the ocean the way other liners did. Still, passengers boarded, eager for comfort, adventure, and the prestige of traveling on a ship that seemed untouchable. In July 1909, the Waratah set sail from Durban, South Africa, bound for Cape Town. On board were more than 200 passengers and crew, families, traders, seamen, and those chasing new fortunes in Australia. As she departed, the weather was clear, but warnings of rough seas ahead loomed. Waratah's captain, Josiah Ilbery, an experienced sailor, reassured his guests. The Waratah, after all, was advertised as unsinkable, but confidence often breeds tragedy. By July 27th, the ship was last sighted by the Clan McIntyre, another steamer traveling the same route. The Waratah appeared steady, her passengers strolling the decks as if nothing were amiss. Captain Bruce of the Clan McIntyre waved his farewell. Hours later, a storm lashed the South African coast with terrifying force. When the Waratah failed to arrive in Cape Town, unease grew into horror. She had vanished, without a single distress call, without debris, without survivors. The pride of a shipping empire was gone, swallowed by the sea in a matter of hours. And with her, over 200 lives disappeared into a silence that has lasted more than a century. Vanished without trace. The disappearance of the Waratah remains one of the most chilling maritime mysteries in history, not because ships had never sunk before, but because of the way she vanished without leaving a clue. In the days following her disappearance, search vessels scoured the turbulent waters along South Africa's coast. Ships were diverted, patrols sent out, and rumors flooded in. But not a single lifeboat, not a piece of floating timber, not even a body surfaced. It was as if the Waratah had been erased from existence. This baffled investigators. Normally, wreckage drifts to shore after a maritime disaster, wooden planks, life preservers, luggage. But with the Waratah, there was only silence. Families of the passengers waited desperately in Cape Town and London, clutching to hope that survivors might have drifted somewhere, or that the ship had limped into a hidden cove. Newspapers called her the Titanic of the Southern Hemisphere, though the Waratah's fate was eerier still, because no one knew where, when, or how she was lost. Witness reports surfaced. Some claimed to have seen distress flares off the coast. Others swore they heard cries in the night carried by the wind. But none of these accounts could be proven. A vessel so large, carrying hundreds, could not simply vanish, yet vanish she did. Maritime experts began whispering of design flaws, hidden dangers within her construction. Perhaps the Waratah was top-heavy, unstable in high seas. Perhaps the storm was too much, or perhaps something stranger occurred, something no engineer could explain. The sea gives up many secrets, but it also guards many more. And in the case of the Waratah, the ocean seemed determined to swallow her whole and keep her story buried. Storm of death. The final hours of the SS Waratah have been reconstructed only through fragments of witness accounts and the wrath of the sea itself. The Clan McIntyre was the last ship to see her alive, steady on the waves, her passengers basking in the cool air as if danger was a distant rumor. Yet within hours, the South African coast was consumed by one of the most ferocious storms in living memory. gale-force winds churned the sea into walls of water. Lightning split the sky, thunder rolling like the cannons of war. For any ship caught in that fury, survival was uncertain. For a vessel suspected of being top-heavy and unstable, the odds were even grimmer. Sailors along the coast spoke of seeing a massive ship stagger in the distance that night, its lights flickering, then gone. Others swore they spotted distress flares arcing into the darkness, swallowed quickly by the storm. Was it the Waratah calling desperately for help? The ocean was merciless, a graveyard waiting to be filled. If the Waratah was trapped in the heart of that cyclone, she would have fought for hours, her engines roaring, her passengers terrified. Imagine the screams echoing in the storm, as waves taller than houses smashed across her decks, as water cascaded through her corridors, extinguishing the chandeliers and flooding the cabins. But not even the terror of those last moments remains for us to hold. No wreckage, no survivors, only speculation and silence. For the families waiting in Cape Town, hope turned to dread. By the morning, the storm had passed, leaving only a calm horizon, as if mocking mankind's belief in its control over the sea. The Waratah, once the pride of ocean travel, was gone, cursed by design. After the Waratah's disappearance, attention turned to her construction. Could a ship so new, so celebrated, truly have vanished without human error? Engineers began to whisper of fatal flaws. The Waratah was built to serve dual purposes: luxurious passenger liner and heavy cargo carrier. This combination required design compromises that many later believed doomed her. She was tall, broad, and stacked with lavish cabins for wealthy travelers, yet beneath, she carried dense, heavy cargo. This left her dangerously unbalanced, especially in storm conditions. Some sailors who had served on her before the final voyage described how she would roll violently, recovering sluggishly, as if fighting against her own weight. Reports even suggested she had nearly capsized on a previous journey, but warnings were ignored. The Union Castle Line was too proud to admit their prized vessel was flawed. To passengers, she was the floating palace. To crew, she was a lumbering beast, waiting for the wrong wave. If the Waratah entered that storm with her decks laden and her center of gravity too high, the result may have been inevitable. One colossal roll, a surge of water, and the ocean would take her forever. Yet, theories of flawed design cannot fully explain the mystery. Why did no wreckage ever surface? Ships that capsize leave debris. Lifeboats are torn free, timbers float, cargo drifts for miles. But from the Waratah, there was nothing. Was the flaw so catastrophic that she plunged straight down in a single motion, dragged into the abyss with terrifying speed? Or was something more unexplainable at work? The ocean has always been mankind's oldest adversary, beautiful, vast, and merciless. And in the story of the Waratah, it may have been human pride that built a ship too vulnerable, and a storm that delivered its judgment. Ghost Ship Whispers. The Waratah's disappearance was not only a tragedy, but the birth of a legend. In the months and years that followed, stories began to surface, tales that blurred the line between reality and myth. Some claimed that the Waratah had been spotted long after the storm, drifting silently like a phantom in the South Atlantic. Sailors swore they had seen a great white liner gliding across the waves, her decks eerily empty, her smokestacks cold, vanishing into mist before they could draw closer. These reports were dismissed as hallucinations of weary men at sea, but the whispers never stopped. Theories multiplied. Some insisted the Waratah had suffered a catastrophic engine failure, drifting aimlessly until a rogue wave split her in two. Others suggested she had foundered in deep waters so remote that nothing could ever float back to shore. But then came darker tales, that the Waratah had been cursed from the very beginning, a ship built with arrogance and doomed by fate. Survivors of earlier voyages had spoken uneasily of her strange rolling motion, of the way she seemed to resist the sea's natural rhythm. To them, she was not just unsafe, but alive in a way that filled them with dread. And as the decades passed, the Waratah became more than a lost ship. She became a ghost of the oceans, a maritime legend whispered in the same breath as the Flying Dutchman. Sightings of her spectral form near the Cape of Good Hope continued into the 20th century. Always the same description: a majestic liner, glowing faintly, appearing just before a storm. Was it imagination, or had the Waratah been condemned to replay her final voyage for eternity? A warning to those who dared to challenge the sea. Eternal abyss calls. Despite decades of searching, the Waratah has never been found. Oceanographers have scoured the seafloor off South Africa using sonar and modern technology, yet the wreck remains hidden. No lifeboats, no debris, no human remains, only silence. Some believe the Waratah lies entombed in a deep ocean trench, buried beneath layers of shifting sand. Others cling to the belief that the sea itself keeps her secret, a reminder that human mastery of the waves is nothing but an illusion. But as much as experts have tried to rationalize the Waratah's fate, her story has slipped into something darker, more timeless. The ship has become a symbol of mankind's fragile arrogance, of how a marvel of human engineering can be unmade in a single night. The Waratah was more than steel and rivets. She carried families, dreamers, and workers, all swallowed in one violent breath of the sea. Their screams are lost, their stories unfinished, their voyage eternal, and perhaps that is why her legend endures. To this day, sailors crossing the same waters glance nervously at the horizon, whispering of the ship that was never found. Some still claim to see her, just before a storm, rising from the mist, her lights flickering in the darkness. Is it a mirage? Or is it the Waratah's way of warning us, her ghostly presence demanding that we never forget? The truth may lie forever beneath the waves. But in the silence of her disappearance, the Waratah speaks louder than any wreckage ever could. She is not just a lost ship, she is a grave, a phantom, and a reminder. The ocean takes what it wants, and sometimes it leaves nothing behind.